The Witches of Eastwick, 1987. Now, this is pretty much a silly comedy slash drama, but it doesn't cross the line of farcical, I'd say. And it was marketed towards women, so they don't really make it that dark, even though it is a horror themed. So it was on TV a lot in the 90s and 2000s. I'm sure a lot of you seen it, especially with the popularity of Jack Nicholson. He's dazzling once again in this, and surprisingly I find out that George Miller, the director of all the Mad Max films, is the one who directed this in 1987. I was completely shocked by that. Anyway, the setting here it's a classic, quaint East Coast town. Kind of got a Salem-esque aura to it. And let's introduce the characters. So it's the three women who they're all have their own problems with men. I mean, what is a woman without a man? Pretty much that's pretty much what they convey in the opening. They meet together, they're really close friends. Susan Sarandon, she has no kids, she's an introvert and dresses like it's the early 1900s. She's the music teacher at the local school. And Cher is kind of like the leader of the trio, and she's a widow and a sculptor at a local shop in town. She also has one kid. Then Michelle Pfeiffer, the most nubile of them all. She was about 27, 28-ish when they made this. And she has, she's the one who has 6 kids. And her husband left her because, I don't know, they ended up having too many kids and he felt the burden of that. They really don't go into that. So they're all kind of like searching for the perfect man, and they almost will the arrival of the ideal man that they see, and they pretty much telepathize the ideal man, and he comes in the form of Jack Nicholson. Yep. Classic. He is, he's pretty much a demonic avatar. They really don't even say what he does, but he's pretty much rich, and he buys up the most historical building in town. It's like this huge manor, and it apparently has a history of witchery in it. And he's adept with words, and he really toes the line of vulgarity and audacity throughout. Just like any other Jack Nicholson character. So he really had fun with this, you could tell. And what ends up happening here? So, beginning with Cher, he starts seducing each of the women, of course, separately. And they all fall in love with him. At first there's a bit of animosity between the trio, but then they all kind of live in this salubrious, polygamous relationship. And basically because he has them all charmed, you know, under his spell. And of course this all this deviant behavior reaps the scorn of this small town, and one lady, played by Veronica Cartwright, she's hysterical throughout. And he keeps on, and they end up putting this execrable hex on her where she vomits up stuff and pretty much acts frenzied and delusional. And she gets the town all stirred up, and he ends up, like I said, they end up putting the hex on her, but they're not evil. They're pretty much white witches, essentially, you know. And so he puts an end to her, and she dies, and they're all feeling sad about it. So they avoid him for a while, and he becomes sulky and wrathful, and in his brooding, he causes Susan Sarandon to have a baby, and then he causes Michelle Pfeiffer. She's pretty much gets like her herpes like flares up, and she gets bedridden from it. Almost dying from it, essentially. So they're like, wow, he's too temperamental, you know. So they create an effigy of him. Here's the picture. This is towards the end because they're good witches, remember? And, oh yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer's so hot in this. I totally had a crush on her when she was, in the Muppets. Remember the Muppets had their own TV show in the 90s where they kind of revived it and they had all these celebrities on. Oh yeah, she was so hot in that. Plus Catwoman from Batman Returns. They were in another movie, her and Jack Nicholson, The Wolf from 1994. It's a werewolf too. That one's alright. Anyway, back to this movie. I undigress here. So he's too temperamental, like I said, so they create the effigy to banish him. Of course, Cher creates it with their sculpting skills. They make it out of wax. And he goes into town, and they start putting pins and needles into him, and they throw it around the house, and he's smashing up the local Dairy Mart, and then they throw him into the church, and he's totally raving, like, I taught these women how to, all their magic. They had it in them. Because really, unbeknownst to them, they are witches, or they had the witchcraft gene instilled in them. So, in the end, they are able to exorcise him to some realm, and really, he's only allowed when they invite him, and they're the ones who invited him, because he's a demon, and then they're allowed to dispel him. So they have his babies, and he tries to come back through way of the TV. This is the final scene, but they're like, nope, you're too dangerous, you're too malicious, we could do fine without you with the tall servant, who's like a total freak. He's like a Nephilim descendant. He doesn't even say a word the whole movie. I don't think he utters a complete term at all. Anyway, yeah, overall, pretty good. Not dark enough for me, but watchable once every 10 years or so, I'd say, because that was the last time I saw it, was maybe like '06. Anyway, it's coming up on its 30-year anniversary next summer. And this was JBM from Mr. Creepshow 9. Overall, I'd give it a B. Maybe a B+, but I'd say a B. Anyway, click on the channel for more horror, sci-fi, and comic book reviews. Every Saturday night I come out with a new video, plus I show off a bunch of memorabilia. And shoot me a message, shoot me a recommendation. I'm always open to doing videos, and I'm out. Thanks.